Hi guys, today I'm going to show you how you can leverage being a member of the Docker group to elevate your privileges on Linux. On this machine, I'm logged in as user Ubuntu. This is a highly privileged user, and I also have the user Lucas, who has low privileges. Logged in as Lucas, I cannot even see what a user Ubuntu has. I cannot check its desktop. I cannot do anything on user Ubuntu. And this is expected since Lucas is a low privileged user. Now imagine that the administrator of this machine wants to grant Lucas the ability to run Docker images. He would do so by adding Lucas to the Docker group. Now, Lucas is still a low privileged user, but he can run Docker images. But I'm going to show you soon why this is basically adding a user to the sudoers group. This is where administrators usually mess up because the Docker group is basically root. Switching back to Lucas, as you remember, low privilege user cannot do anything. One thing that this low privilege user can do is to spin up a Docker container of an Ubuntu image and mount the host's root directory into the /mount/host directory inside a container and to get a root shell inside of it. Now, from a low privilege user, I become root inside a container. But one thing interesting is that the /mount/host directory inside my container is actually the root directory of the host of Ubuntu-VMware 20-1. So from within the container, I can get the etc shadow file that I couldn't before. The thing is that my Docker container and the host share the same kernel, and this is extremely dangerous. Also, from inside this shell, I'm going to navigate to the home directory. I can see the Ubuntu user. I'm going to cd into it, cd into its desktop, and from here, I can make a little prank. The Lucas user with the root shell inside the Docker container could create a directory inside the Ubuntu's user desktop. And as you remember, logged in as Lucas, I could not even ls and check what the Ubuntu user had inside its home directory. And now, ultimately, to persist myself as root, I'm gonna echo that Lucas is gonna be able to run all of the sudo commands without entering a password. And I'm gonna add it to the sudo group. Now our privilege escalation is complete. Exiting the container and back to my host machine, I'm root. The administrator has added me to the group Docker. And since it didn't have any strict, tight SLinux or AppArmor limitations, I could leverage being on the Docker group to add myself to the sudo group. Well, and since I'm root, I can read the /etc/shadow file. To prevent this, do not add untrusted users to the Docker group. To preserve accountability and logging, require explicit sudo for Docker commands. Use Docker in a rootless mode. In this mode, containers will run without root. They will not have access to the host root file system, and this is much safer for multi-user systems. Also, use mandatory access controls. Tools like AppArmor and SLinux can restrict container capabilities and mounts. You would simply not allow a container to mount the root file system inside of it.